When I spoke to you about what we could talk about today, you mentioned that no one is immune from burnout. Even being a well-being researcher like you, who studied well-being for decades, you weren't immune from it either. What can you tell us about your experience and your perception of burnout?
Yeah, thanks so much, Patricia. So I experienced burnout more than 10 years ago. And while the concept has been around for a while, we weren't talking about it as much back then. And I didn't know as much about burnout back then. In the field of workplace well-being, where I've done my work, we largely talked about stress management and coping techniques. And so I was aware of resources that could help me cope with stress. What I've come to understand about burnout as I've looked into it more is that it is not a problem that resides within the individual. Burnout is what happens when we are surrounded by influences and pressures that overcome the resources we bring to that situation. And so it is a phenomenon of the conditions around us, a phenomenon of the workplace in particular, not just me as an individual. Having said that, I was definitely experiencing burnout more than 10 years ago. I had all the classic warning signs, just crushing, bone crushing fatigue, feeling disengaged with my work, feeling unfulfilled in my life. And I knew that there was something wrong, but I didn't know what it was, because on the outside, for people looking in, I looked like a complete success. I was in a vice president position. I had graduated with my PhD a few years prior. I was publishing papers and speaking at conferences. So to the outside, I had it all together. And it was very confusing to me when I began to feel these feelings of unfulfillment. I'm like, what's wrong? Why do I feel this sense of emptiness? Why am I disengaged? And now I know that is something that can be experienced from experiencing burnout.
It's interesting what you said about there was a disconnect with what people saw and what you were feeling. And I would imagine there was also a disconnect within yourself about, why am I feeling like this if I am seen as being so successful? Could you add a little more to that? Because I'm really interested in the fact that this is not a person's problem, so to speak. They haven't created it. Like you said, burnout is created by what we're surrounded by, right? So it's everyone's responsibility to look at how burnout is affecting people.